Okay, let's now talk about lipids that do not contain fatty acids. Remember, this is our whole other section of special lipids that do not utilize these. All of those types of lipids we talked about before are triacylglycerides, are glycerophospholipids, are sphingolipids. All of those utilize fatty acids in some way. But as we said in the beginning, there's a whole branch of lipids that don't use fatty acids. Probably the most well-known and studied are sterol lipids and cholesterol. Sterol lipids are a class of lipid that are based on the very basic structure of having these 4 fused rings, and they are fused in the same way that you see here. So this is a 6-membered ring fused at this position to another 6-membered ring, fused at this position to another 6-membered ring, and then fused here at the last position to a 5-membered ring. Generally, they have a hydroxyl group, a polar end that is attached to the A ring, or that first 6-membered ring. So across the board, all of our sterols are going to have this polar head group. They all are going to have these 4 fused rings, and they're then going to have a general alkyl side chain. This is variable, and some of these other side chains, for example, here and here along the way, also can be altered depending on what type of sterol they are. Now, one special thing about sterols is that they are pretty much planar. They're bulky and they are flat. This is important because steroid groups, when they get incorporated to something like a cell membrane, will actually change the structure of a cell membrane because of their rigidity. So let's look at the types of sterols. The main sterol backbone is cholesterol. Cholesterol metabolically is utilized as the backbone to form many of these other types of sterols. There are things like bile acids, which we utilize in our digestion. There is vitamin D, which we utilize in being able to part of our immunity and also in relation to our calcium uptake. There's a whole area of sex hormones that are signaling hormones, androgens and estrogens, and also another set of signaling hormones, glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids that help signal our body for different uptake of sugars and minerals. Again, cholesterol and its related sterols are present in the membranes of most eukaryotic cells. And in a membrane setting, they help modulate the fluidity. They usually thicken the plasma membrane because they are very rigid. Interestingly, bacteria do not use cholesterol in their membrane. So this is another difference between bacteria and eukaryotic cells, is using cholesterol in the actual cell membranes. Now, we need to obtain cholesterol from food, or we have to synthesize it in the liver, but it is a very important molecule. It can be bound to proteins and gets transported to different tissues via blood vessels. So when it is being transported, this is usually the amount that is in our blood, is referred to as your blood cholesterol levels. So if you have cholesterol in something called a low density lipoprotein in a lipid structure, this can tend to deposit, and because of its rigid structure, can clog arteries. Now, again, many of our hormones, as I just went over, are also derivatives of cholesterol and its sterols. So cholesterol itself gets used in cell membranes, but its derivatives can get used as signaling hormones. So many of these steroid hormones, so again, these are signaling molecules, that's what hormone means, that are based off of cholesterol. They are steroids. They are some oxidized form. They tend to be a little bit more polar form of a sterol. They're more polar than cholesterol, and they're usually synthesized from cholesterol in gonads and also in our adrenal glands, where we're going to be also utilizing other signaling molecules to talk to our body. They get carried through the bloodstream, and again, they're usually attached to some type of carrier protein as they're moving through the bloodstream. Many of these steroid hormones are male and female sex hormones. So common ones that we know that are steroid hormones, testosterone, and estradiol, but also things like cortisol, which are going to affect our fight or flight levels. It's going to affect a lot of things in our body. It's going to potentially make us faster, but also in a more stressed condition. But again, I want to point out that sex hormones are not the only type of hormones that are derived from cholesterol. And you can see in this image the vast variety of different hormone molecules, signaling molecules, that get utilized based just solely on cholesterol. So our progesterones, which are found in both male and female mammals and also other organisms, are utilized for different signaling processes, and these can be turned into androgens, which are typically thought of as male sex hormones, but these are things like testosterone. But again, females also utilize testosterone and its signaling. Also, estradiol and the estrogens are typically thought of as female sex hormones, but again, these are found in both male and female mammals, and just in general in other organisms as well, and are utilized as sex hormones. But you can also take our progesterones and turn them into things like glucocorticoids with help in signaling in relation to energy and sugar uptake, and mineral corticoids. So something like aldosteroid, which is related to other uptakes of different minerals and vitamins in our body. One other area that's not shown on our previous map is the bile acids. And their main derivative is cholic acid. These are a special type of lipid in that they are an acid, so they're very polar. They have a site that is very polar, and then, of course, their whole other area of the ring that is very nonpolar. Because they have these two regions, polar and nonpolar, they're actually very good at helping to act almost like a soap. So they help to remove lipids, other fats, or bind up other fats to move them through our intestines. They help make lipids more soluble in our intestines as they're moving through, and so they get utilized in digestion quite often. Bile acids are very interesting because they are made in-house by us and in areas like the gallbladder and in other digestive areas, but there are certain derivatives that are made by our gut bacteria within our intestines.